Okay. Okay, so we are live. Haiti Oropesa, good evening with Florida U Judge. And tonight we did an impromptu uh, decision to come on and address an issue that just came out with Tampa City Council. They just passed an ordinance. It's been headlining in local publications, Florida politics, news stations. Did Tampa Bay Times do anything, Getulio, Walter?
I'm not sure that they did. I know.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Walter Smith. A lot of you know him. He has a Sunday morning forum that he goes on every week and talks about a lot of interesting local issues as well. And Getulio, a local activist up and coming. He's on his way, hopefully soon, to law school. And yesterday, we spent part of our Sunday talking about a Florida statute that neither of us really knew much about because I don't practice landlord-tenant. I do criminal defense and dabble in some other civil areas, but not landlord-tenant. So a little while ago, I got off with Gretchen Cothran. We know her. I don't know if you know her, Walter. You should. She's a local activist.
I know Gretchen,
yeah, Gretchen. And Getulio, you know Gretchen. So she does landlord tenant, but she does it from the she defends the landlords. So but I called her earlier today to see if she'd come on as a landlord tenant attorney. But I got an opportunity to speak to her a little while ago, and I said, are we analyzing this right? Because me and Getulio did some analysis yesterday. So let's go ahead. Two people have tuned in, yay, and good evening. Thank you for tuning in. Share, please. Invite those of you who know anyone here locally to tune in. This is an issue that's it's very important, very serious. I'm here reading news articles that say that Tampa is leading in the nation along with Miami. Am I correct on that, Getulio?
The statistic is that Tampa is the third most overvalued market when it comes to housing and rent in the nation. Number 3.
Wow. So, and as you can see, we are live. The call-in number is 813-221-9700. There's a crisis, a rent crisis. They're saying that rents are going up to like 37.5% increases.
Correct.
That's crazy. Walter, what do you say about that?
That is absolutely absurd. What we're faced with right now is something that there has to be a better solution than what we're faced with, because what we're faced with right now is a situation where we were fighting for 15 not long ago, right? For $15, just so people could be able to get a livable wage. Now it doesn't even matter that you have $15 an hour. $15 an hour isn't near enough. And they have, it's just greed. It's absolute greed. What you're seeing is a change in the market, so much so that people, the working man and woman cannot survive. They cannot survive. They're priced out of any apartments that are here. If they live in apartments, any type of apartments that are here, they're priced out of it because the job is not paying enough money, and it's just absolutely absurd. And it seems like there's no end in sight. Our local government is acting as though its hands are tied, and these people who are the landowners or landlords, if they're renting, are just greedy, absolutely greedy. And the folks that are making these houses, that's ridiculous. You look at the housing market itself. You're putting $500,000 houses in communities where the average house cost is somewhere around 80 to 90, maybe even $100,000 at the most, historically. And so now what's happened? I mean, the workforce is just not adequate, and they're not paying enough, and these people
and
cannot
inflation.
The cost of inflation is ridiculous. All of this stuff is absolutely ridiculous.
Walter, you know more than I because you've been you're more into politics and the process, especially out there in Tampa. What could be done, if anything, really? Like so, because here's the headline this last week, um, and the mayor on her social media page said, "Yay, city council, great job, yay." But is it really a win? I don't think so, and it's just based on common sense, not even
It's
analyzing it
not.
from a legal perspective. Let's go
It's not
ahead.
a win.
Haiti, can I share something really quick? Just a link with you. Okay, I'm
You
gonna.
want to share a link? Go ahead. I was gonna share a link. I wanted to share the headline. Let me go ahead and do that first. The battle of the share. I'm gonna go ahead and let's see which our news outlet I wanted. I'll go ahead and I'll do Florida politics. Let's give them a little bit of a promo. This is journalist Daniel Figueroa. He reported on it immediately. Um, let's see here. I am going to Tampa City Council to require landlords to give 60-day notice before raising rents. Um, so that was the big win. That was the big win. And so me and Getulio yesterday, this weekend, somebody called me and asked me, okay, go ahead. You wanna go ahead.
Yeah. Like I just want to make it clear. Okay, on the 18th, Tampa Bay gets millions in HUD grants as part of the Biden housing program. This was on the 18th of this month. And right here, if we look right here under Tampa and Hillsborough County, collectively, both have about $20 worth of grant funding. So
20
if collectively we have 20 million. So if our elected officials say that we can't pay for anything like that, that our ambitions are too grand, well, now you know that they're lying to you. And I just wanted to make that clear. I do have some solutions in mind, Haiti, and I'm sure Walter does as well, and we can get into that. But please continue with what you were saying.
Okay, so all right, great. So no, what I was saying is that they're saying that that's a win, and in fact, me and you were talking last night because this weekend one of the local activists called me and then they made me aware, and I'm gonna go ahead and share that Robin Lockett, she's part of Florida Rising, and she was quoted in the publications that came out because she was asking for 90 days. What the ordinance that was passed was one that will now require in Tampa landlords to give a 60-day notice of a rent increase. So hold on just a second. I'm trying to is can you share Robin Lockett's flyer for me, Getulio? Do you think you could do that?
Which flyer?
The one that for calling on people to be present at city council.
I never got that flyer.
I have that flyer. I have
Could
it
you
here.
share that?
Yeah,
You can
Walter.
share you're
But
able
I'll
to
be
share.
there.
You're able to share Walter.
All right, give me one moment. Let me get
Yeah,
to it.
so while Walter's looking for that, let's do this.
Talk about it.
This is my point. This is my point. This is they said they gave a 60-day notice requirement to give you the memo that we are increasing your rent. But in the articles, and I did have an opportunity to speak to Robin Lockett this weekend, but somebody asked me, hey, can you put out the word? And I was able to have a very meaningful, like 40-minute conversation with Robin Lockett, and she like laid out what exactly she's going to be lobbying for, advocating for the city to implement. She's on the same page with you, Getulio. You've been now for weeks talking to me about this, and you're incredibly passionate about this, and kudos to you for that because this is important. I mean, we all tonight we can thank God, and we're blessed that we're able to lay our head on a pillow and have a roof over it. That's something now that people are going to be struggling to be able to have. And so just because we're comfortable doesn't mean that we should just ignore this. We should contribute to try to see what the powers that be could do to change this. But so let me just go ahead and show the statute. Okay. And again, I did speak
I'm
to
sorry, I was showing. Did,
It's
did you see the flyer there on
I
the
do, and I'm
screen?
going to
On my
add it to the
screen?
stream. And so, very creative call to action headline or title. So go ahead and read it. But that's going down on Thursday, May 26th, 9 a.m. It'd be good, especially since a lot of people are being impacted with, I mean, 30%, 37%, 37.5% said Florida Politics article that the rent is being increased by. That's huge. That's huge. And like it's commonly known, or we're told based on one of the articles that I read, that your total income should not to 30% of it should be represent what is used for housing costs. Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
when it
There,
goes
like,
above that,
you have a
that
problem.
you have a problem already because of an economic formula as far as living costs. That is
Yeah.
what is
Cost,
allocated
yeah.
for.
Cost of
So
living is, it's your rent should not exceed more than one third of your income. If you're getting more than that threshold of 30 to 33%, then yeah, we're in a crisis. We're in a housing crisis.
Walter, are you able to read the post? I can hardly see it. Robin Lockett's post that is with tied to the
The
promo.
flyer.
Yeah, could you
Okay,
read that?
so it says join us in our red shirts on Thursday, May 26th at Tampa City Council at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard at 9 a.m. Let your voice be heard. If rent is too high, come. If there's a lack of housing, come. If your property insurance has been canceled, come. If you deal with a slumlord, come. Or if you know someone that's impacted, tell them about it, and they well, then you still come to support. We need all hands on deck. Tampa City Council and the mayor have to ish or get off the pot. There are no gray areas. Either you're really for the people or for profit. When they are not with the U.S., we suffer, and we are suffering right now. If you have any questions, please contact me at 813-310-0793. That's 813-310-0793.
All right, thank you, Walter. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share the statute, Florida statute, because Robin Lockett, who he just read from her post, she asked for 90 days. And let's just analyze this. This is, I think, is gonna be one of the most meaningful
In the
discussions.
reality, Haiti, we should have 120 to 180 days.
Okay,
Um,
right. And I think that one of the articles that I did read now that Bill Carlson, City Councilman Bill Carlson, did ask for six months, and I think that that's what she initially was like at asking, but then she was willing to settle for 90 days. But then let's look at this, because the Florida Politics article, I think, said that the city attorney had said that the 60-day rent increase notice was more in line with the statute. Okay, it's almost like, I think, based on my conversation with Robin during the weekend, she got the impression that no, we if the state statute gives 60 days for renewal notice, we have to kind of like keep in line with that. And I don't know that that's correct legally. I don't
it
know.
doesn't.
You would be able to speak that to that more so than I, Walter. Is the city, because you ran for city council. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Say it again. What was it again?
So so this statute, so, and for those who are tuning in, it's Florida statute 83.575. And in that statute, it's for a termination of tenancy with specific duration. And I'm going to read it. It's there on the screen, but it says a rental agreement with a specific duration may contain a provision, may, not shall, contain a provision requiring the tenant to notify the landlord within a specified period before vacating the premises at the end of the rental agreement. If such provision requires the landlord to notify the tenant within such notice period, if the rental agreement will not be renewed. However, a rental agreement may not require more than 60 days notice from either the tenant or the landlord. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop that share. But essentially, that statute is saying, if you're a landlord, Walter, I'm a landlord, Hedulio, and we have a tenant, we can, in the lease, say, look, before you have to give me a 60-day notice if you are not intending on renewing it.
Renewing the
So
lease.
let's just start there. What was
And
proposed? Go.
yeah, and the problem with this, I mentioned this at city council this morning, is that if you're an unscrupulous landlord and you put in that provision where your tenant is obligated to give you that 60-day renewal notice, then you can turn around on that same day, because you as a landlord are only obligated by the tenant's bill of rights to let your tenant know 60 days prior to the termination or the expiration of the lease that you're going to be raising the rent. So essentially you're giving that you're giving that tenant a single day notice that you might be raising the rent more than 5% by however. So for example, let's say I'm a landlord, and Walter's renting from me, and I put in the lease a provision that if Walter doesn't wish to renew the lease 60 days prior to the expiration of that lease, he needs to give me warning. But then
Okay.
I have a 60-day obligation to let him know that I'm raising the rent. So the problem is that the city policy and the Florida statute clash. So an unscrupulous landlord can take advantage of that, and on that same day, like, no, I'm gonna raise your rent by $300 $400, and you only have a day to decide whether or not you're gonna renew the
So
contract.
so it doesn't clash, and I think we talked about this yesterday. We were trying to like me and you both understand after my conversation with Robin. It doesn't clash. It's just doesn't. It's not ideal. It's not practical. How are you going to come out as I said? And I'm not trying to be critical, but if we're gonna do something and boast that something is like a huge win for the current crisis that's occurring in the city of Tampa, this is not one to boast about. Because if you're being given 60 days, that you're a requirement to give notice to your landlord that you're not going to renew, and on that very day when that clock starts ticking, the landlord is required to tell you, hey, by the way, today you have to give me a yes or no on whether you're going to renew. And oh, by the way, I'm raising your rent $500. How does that make sense? Like, you know how they say out
It
the
doesn't
youngins,
make
make it
sense.
make sense. How does that make
But
sense, Walter?
these preemptions have been put in place in order to protect these people, and for them to operate, as I always say, with impunity. And we have had councils in the past, and we've had courts in the past that have allowed this to happen for so long that they've gotten away with it. Now, only now, we are beginning to pay more attention to these things because there's a major problem, and it is now become pervasive. And so everybody has a problem. That I usually say to people, when my problem becomes your problem, then you'll start paying attention to it. Well, that's where we are now, right? And so people are now paying attention to it, and we've got to make sure that we're doing something to change these ordinances, or
Okay,
to
but
create
Walter,
ordinances that address these things directly, not with any backdoor nuances and all this ambiguity to it, which is exactly what they've been able to do in order to make these things work.
The metaphor, Walter, that I like using is that currently the city is in a situation. Let's pretend the city is a ship and it's full of holes, and there's water coming into the ship, and the ship is sinking. And what city council and the mayor and all these elected officials are doing are basically taking a bucket and throwing the water out of the ship. But
Right.
at the same time, the hole is still there, and then the water keeps coming in. And instead of plugging that hole, they just keep using that bucket to pull it out. And the issue with that is that they refuse to plug that hole because of the developers who are funding these local campaigns,
Absolutely.
and
I
that's the
know.
crux of it.
No, but wait. I want to ask Walter something. You said preemption. What does preemption have to do with the inability of the city to create an ordinance to give a 90-day notice or require a landlord to give a 90-day notice of rental increase? What does that have to do with
Preemptions.
preemption? I
There
don't
are a
get it.
lot of preemptions. There are a lot of things that have happened in the past year or so, with regard to the state legislature. You just read a state ordinance, if I'm not mistaken,
I
a
did.
legislative piece. Yeah. So a lot of those have come out in the past year or so that have actually taken the power away from the local governments to act on certain things, as opposed to what they used to be able to do before. and these preemptions have passed in the past probably 3 years, consecutively. Each year, there's something new that comes up, and this is no different. And so now we see these new ordinances or legislations that have come out that have put power in the hands of not the local government, but taking it out of the hands of local government and put it in the hands of the developers and put it in the hands of people who are landlords and so forth to be able to do the things they do with impunity.
I
And
don't know
that's
the answer to this, and I'm a lawyer. I don't know the answer. I would have to research it. I have friends who are government lawyers, city lawyers, so I can make inquiry this week. But when you say preemption, that's not like a phrase or a thing that disallows a municipality to pass an ordinance that
Yes,
won't
Haiti.
run counter to a state law, because that's what it essentially, I think Robin was told. Oh, we can't give 90 because 60 is allotted under state law to give notice, and it can't go beyond that. It's capped at 60. I
Right.
gotta research that. Do you know definitively the answer to that, Walter? Because I don't.
I don't right now off
Okay.
the top of my head. I can't remember it right now, but I
Because that
just
doesn't make sense, Walter. It doesn't make sense commonsensically. It doesn't make sense for me to tell you,
none of it makes
tenant,
sense.
hey, tenant, you have, I'm going to give you my 60-day notice now that I'm increasing your rent, and you got to decide by today whether to give me a renewal or not. That doesn't make sense.
But it makes sense. I tell you who it does make sense to. Guess who it makes sense to? It makes sense to that landlord. It all. You know who else it makes sense to? It makes sense to developers as well,
Yep.
and to people who make money off of this type of thing. So let's say a landlord wants to get rid of that property for whatever reason. A developer's come to them and said, "Hey, you know what? I'll pay you X amount of dollars for that property that you have, and you
Absolutely.
and then I can do whatever I need to do with
Eh,
it. You
But
good
it,
with that? Yeah, fine."
but it doesn't matter, because even if there's no requirement of a notice to increase the rent, they're not bound by that. They're, if they want to, they could just say, I'm not going to rent to you in 60 days. You got to make arrangements to find alternative housing, because they can do that still.
They are
What per,
trying to make certain that they are covering their butts, AD, when they do these types of things. And when they do these things, and Julio, you know I'm telling the truth. They do these things consistently. That's happened all through West Tampa, all throughout West Tampa. You see it. These people sold their houses. These people sold and have given it to developers to be able to make bigger houses and put these bigger price tags on it.
I
It's
understand.
all connected in some
And
way.
there's something to what Walter's saying, because my landlady straight up lied to me before the apartment that I'm renting now. She lied to me. She said, "Listen, I have to give up my. You need to move out of my apartment because my ex husband wants to move in here, and yeah, I'm just giving you 30 days for you to find a new place." And when I went back there to get some stuff, the apartment was still empty 2 months later. So
All right.
it's all about a profit for a lot of
Okay.
these people.
So this is News Channel 8. Tampa City Council proposes a 60-day notice requirement for rental increases. Affordable housing is still a top priority for some city leaders in the Tampa Bay area who believe they have at least one solution to a growing issue. On Thursday, the Tampa City Council had its first reading of an ordinance that will change the current renters' bill of rights. The ordinance will require renters to give tenants a 60-day notice if their rent goes up. Renters under a month-to-month lease will get a 30-day notice. The purpose of the requirement is to give tenants a heads up about rent increases. By state law, we can't have a 6-month notice period. Council member Bill Carlson said, we did attempt not just a 90-day notice, but a 6-month notice period. But it seems like the most we can do is 60. That's Bill Carlson attempting to advocate for a 6 months. 6 months makes sense. 6 months makes sense. 90 days makes sense. I would maybe negotiate. Let's do 120. You know what? What do you got to do? This doesn't make sense for Jane Castor. And this is, I'm not attacking her, being critical, but to say this is a win, congratulate, it's not.
It shows
Even
what
a
it
person,
shows.
my 10-year-old nephew could tell you that. It's not a win. A win
Absolutely.
is to be told, hey, 4 months, 120 days before, and 2 months before the 60-day clock starts ticking, where you got to tell your landlord, never mind.
Right.
gives you enough time to start gathering monies to give first and last security, and start searching around the market to find something that's more, not as expensive as now. That makes sense. Why can't that happen? That would be a win.
But
That would
wait,
be
no,
a
no, no,
win.
wait. Let's see. Go back to what you just said. Rewind what you just said. To look for what? To look for alternative what? Another place to go. Something that's less expensive. Heidi,
So,
it's
so,
not out.
but I hear what you're saying, and I know where you're going with this. You're not going to find it, Haiti, right now because there's a crisis. Is that it? Is that the point that you're trying to make?
More than that? More than that. It's not
Okay.
just. See, the crisis. The crisis is made up of a series of things, right? The crisis is made up of number one, the fact that we don't have adequate jobs with pay, right? And each time there has been a pay increase, there's been this extraordinary increase, coincidentally, that it seems to be directly opposed to people being able to make a decent living for their families.
You
So
know what?
that
I'm going
means
to go ahead and I'm going to concede to you that my point wasn't the strongest. I am. Because no, I am. And you know why? Because thinking about it, and this is the intellectual joust that we have here in our virtual town square here, and where people are listening. It's a good point. You know why? Because it makes me to rethink. It's exactly, there is a housing crisis. There's a rental crisis.
right.
So
It
whatever
shows up.
whatever time I am given, it's probably not even gonna matter because I'm not gonna probably be able to find something not comparable, something better that what the increase is gonna be. So let's just go ahead and then switch the conversation. Could they do caps on greedy
There you
landlords?
go.
That's it. That would be the win for
That's
Tampa.
what we wanted. That's what we wanted. Rent control, and we did this several months ago. Robin Lockett, Florida Rising, several other
Rising.
nonprofit organizations. I was there representing Chispa, Florida, and FCV. Like we were there. We were demanding rent control, and then we settled for rent stabilization. And then you saw what happened. I'm not going to name any names. We've already discussed this.
No, name them, name them,
Yeah,
name
I
them.
know.
I'm
Okay,
just
I don't.
kidding.
But
I'm just
I
kidding.
just,
I'm just kidding.
I
It's a
just
joke.
don't.
No.
I just don't want to beat a dead horse, Haiti. You know what I mean? We saw what happened. 3 councilmen were attacked for trying to move on rent control or rent stabilization. So
What
clearly,
were you gonna say?
somebody.
That the powers that be, the mayor, is in the pocket of
Oh,
the corporate
absolutely,
landlords? Is that what you're trying to say? Just say it.
absolutely,
Say it. We're in
absolutely. I
America.
mean,
I
we all
thought.
know it. Yeah, yeah, I know. But like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But the fact is that if these developers are funding the majority of these campaigns, guess who controls the city? They do. And guess who the elected officials are going to listen to? Them. You know what I mean? And the problem is, like, now we shifted tactics. Now, like I thought, okay, let's not devolve into protesting in the street. Let's organize and let's come up with a legislative solution. So I propose, like, I looked at what several county commissions and cities across the state of Florida were doing. I spoke with different organizers here in the city of Tampa to see what they were looking at. We came and we settled on this office of tenant advocacy, having an office that would litigate on behalf of the tenant, having an office that represents legal counsel and civil litigation, having an office that serves as a hub that is a registry for every landlord in the city, so that we know every landlord in the city and how they are, whether or not they're upholding the tenants bill of rights, and how. Essentially, we want this registry.
Go.
He froze. Okay,
You
you
froze
froze,
up.
Getulio.
You froze up, buddy. All right.
Getulio.
Let me
Want
Okay,
just
so
say.
this
go.
OTA
I'll say.
There
to?
it is. There he is.
Am I?
There he
Am I?
is.
I'm back. Okay.
You froze. You froze.
You froze up, buddy.
No, that's fine.
Uh,
So no, I mean, we want this office of tenant advocacy, and we want uh, tenants to have right to legal counsel. We want
you froze again. Okay, so here are the points. I'm gonna
tenants
go ahead and
to
step
to
in.
be. We
Yeah.
want this registry.
Wow,
Go ahead,
you're
Dave.
muting yourself. You accidentally muted yourself. Are you good now?
Yeah.
Go. You're good now.
Okay.
I don't know what was
Okay.
happening.
So yeah, no. So we want this OTA, and it's been done in Miami, and it's possible possible to do here, because if it's done in Miami, that means that the state legislature cannot preempt what we're doing. They don't have
I know,
power
but
or
listen,
authority.
they have that in Miami, Getulio, but they still have a crisis. Miami is just as bad as Tampa, if not worse.
This is true. I've heard
Okay.
from
So
people in
Or you,
Miami.
Walter, let me and you pick this up. Hold on, Getulio, let me and you pick this up. I get it. I spoke to Robin. I think what she's advocating for is the same thing that Getulio's been talking to me about. One, she wants a 90-day notice renting of rental increase. We
Right.
talked about that yesterday. I said maybe if it were me, I'd ask for four of 120 days. I'm sure that that's what she would want. But she settled based on what they told her that they couldn't do it because they would uh, uh, go against the state law,
The
which I
legislature, right?
question with whether that's true, and I would have to do research or ask somebody that does that area of law. Right to counsel, that's a great idea for a person. I know that she was telling me there's commission, the county commission allocates like 600,000. And I don't know if would you happen to know, Walter, the answer to whether the city of Tampa allocates money for this type of stuff, like to get an attorney to represent somebody during an eviction
They
situation? Do you
can.
know that?
They can.
They can?
They can.
Okay. All right. So I don't know whether that's a budget item for
they're
What they
with
do
allowed.
is a whole other thing. Yeah, they can, but what they do is a whole other issue.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
So that's what she's asking for, Getulio, same thing. Landlord at registry where there's an annual fee per unit. Those monies would be pooled. We're seeing talk about Silver Oaks. We talked about that this morning or this afternoon, Walter. That's a debacle. That's been out in the news where even Nikki Freed um has been out here to Tampa to look at and let me see if I can go ahead and talk about that. I'm gonna find a picture, but the
Okay.
monies under the registry would be pooled um um to I think pay for part of the attorneys. I don't know how all that would work, but there's also within that part of what they're Getulio and Robin and other activists who are going to be calling for this. The registry would also have fines that could be imposed on landlords for things like that when they are derelict in their obligation as landlords to upkeep and maintain the premises. Talk about Silver Oaks and why this is important, the advocacy for tenants, especially those in low
Silver,
income areas.
I mean,
Silver Oaks.
Silver. Go ahead, Walt.
Let Walter,
Silver
let
Oaks.
Walter.
Silver Oaks is a human rights violation. Bottom
Yes.
line, it's a walking, living zeitgeist of a human rights violation that people here keep saying to me, "Oh yeah, well they're out there fixing the water lines on the street." I don't give a damn about them fixing the water line on the street. These people are sitting inside there with health hazards. And when I say health hazards, I'm talking about people. I'm glad you got that there. They're talking about people that are sitting. I was there the night that my friend Shaw Shaw and I sat there and listened to these people tell us stories about mold illnesses that they have gotten as a result of that. And let me tell you right now, when we talk about the issue of the housing and housing fairness, and we talk about the entire thing, we need to make certain that we are talking about the entire thing. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, Heidi, when a mother is sitting there and she's on the toilet, like a mother would do to mother sit down and they're doing their daughter's hair in the bathroom or whatever, and just over her head, the toilet from above her in the apartment above her is leaking fecal material on her. That's a problem. when
Yep.
you're when you have no weather stripping in your apartment and the mold situation begins to be really bad, that's a problem. When your windows are there and they have mold all in them and it grows onto the sheets, the bedroom sheets, that is a problem. Electricity, the panel boxes leaking from above from the air conditioning unit
Electrical
above,
fires.
electrical fires. This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So when we talk about government and these types of things, we're talking about at its core, we're talking about real detachment, a real detachment from government and people that we put in power to the actual people that they're supposed to represent. There's no way in God's green earth that anybody should be going through this type of thing. None. And I'm talking about not just the rental issue, But we're talking about the health issue. These people's lives are in danger, and there's retaliation on the part of the landlords. And you have situations where, to the maximum, you're talking about children that are being taken out of their homes. They're taken out of their homes, taken away from their parents.
And
Listen,
let me add to that. Like environmental hazards and health hazards aside, housing, just basic safe housing, is a human right. Every sane human being would say that. There is no excuse for people to live unhoused on this earth. Like we have beyond the amount of resources necessary to house every human being on the planet. So
Exactly.
housing is undoubtedly a human right.
okay,
And,
so I'm
and
gonna.
then you compound the fact that people are being evicted with the fact that some people are living in these hazardous conditions. Like, these are egregious examples of human rights violations, and the city of Tampa, the municipality, should be ashamed.
Okay, so one of my favorite outlets locally, Creative Loafing. Nikki Fried calls for federal intervention into problems at Tampa's Silver Oaks apartments. There's Connie Burton, an incredibly prominent, and she's nothing to play around with. Connie Burton, she's the real
Absolutely.
deal. Following media scrutiny of the dangerous living conditions at Tampa Silver Oaks apartments, Florida Commissioner of Agriculture and gubernatorial candidate Nikki Fried is calling for federal intervention in an attempt to get the problems fixed. So I want to just go over some of these problems. The conditions found recently at Cambridge Management Silver Oaks apartments in Tampa are neither safe nor sanitary. Fried wrote, residents have complained of mold, collapsed ceilings, water leakage from appliances, broken central air, and vermin.
That's right.
Vermin. So, and everybody stick. Look, we have a surprise guest, and I'm so happy. I sent her a link. I talked to her earlier today, and I said, you gotta come on, girl. This is another one. Activist. That's something else. She's something else, and I'm gonna go ahead and add her to our stream. And Stephanie Pointer, and
It's
welcome.
definitely
And what do you have to say? I know you have a lot to say about this. You're in Tampa. You know what you're tapped into. Where all the action is occurring. What do you have to say, Stephanie, about all these issues?
Well, good evening. The what a lot of folks don't understand is the city of Tampa only monitors up to 4 units. So these apartment buildings are the primary responsibility at the state level. And I've seen in city council meetings before where they've had issues and brought it up with neighborhood enforcement. Neighborhood enforcement works with um, works with the folks at the state level to let them know that there's a problem. And my question is, okay, so we've got Silver Oaks and we've got Disney. What is the priority of the administration in Tallahassee is my big question, because honestly, this is not something that is normally addressed by the city. Yes, they have had city officials out there, but I mean, we are so wrapped up in the craziness of textbooks and everything else. What are we teaching our kids? Well, what we're teaching our kids is it's okay to live in slum and blight. It's okay to live in human waste and filth. And why we haven't seen anything from HUD after even, I'm not necessarily a fan. Marco Rubio has requested that HUD show up. These people continue month after month after month to receive federal funding for these apartments. And yet they're doing nothing for the folks who live there. And over again, I've suggested that they file the HUD complaint. Every single person who lives in Silver Oaks should file a HUD complaint because it protects them against eviction. And an eviction, as a property manager, an eviction is the kiss of death. It's almost impossible to find some place to live if you've ever had an eviction on your record, even if it's dismissed. It's just almost possible.
Like, I'd like to add that the federal funding is there. The problem is the bureaucracy and the red tape getting in the way and the mismanagement of that money.
Mhm.
Like the funds have been trickling in since the beginning of the pandemic, and the American Rescue Plan was passed. Now, whoever's getting that money, whoever's handling that money locally, that's who we should be asking the question to. Because the federal funding, the Secretary Fudge, she's been she's just as upset about this as we are, because politicians have aspirations, especially in DC. My point is that the bureaucracy and the people here just aren't doing their job. The money's not getting to where it needs to get. The money's here, but it's not getting to the people where it needs to get, and it's not filling the gaps that need to be filled.
Okay, for those of you who are have tuned in, thank you for tuning in. This is Florida Judge Haiti Oropesa. Thanks, Stephanie Pointer, an incredible activist, local activist, Getulio Gonzalez Moliterio as well. Are you going to be there on Thursday?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Walter Smith, he has
Yeah.
his Sunday morning forum, and you can hear my birds here in the background, and they have something to say about rent control and capping, and look, they're pissed, they're mad. Um, so what can we do other than we're gonna have to find out as a community what can be done and what's the solution, because we
I
can talk
believe
all day, but what is it that can be done and should be done?
it's the implementation of an OTA, an Office of Tenant Advocacy, with an officer that has the power to litigate on behalf of tenants. Because if
You know
landlords,
what, Getulio? Look, I
no,
get it, and I hear what you're saying, and I love
Haiti,
you. I love you, Getulio, but
Haiti, it's not that it's going to be one appointed official running around the city litigating every eviction. That's not what I'm saying. But
okay, because
just the
that's what it
fact,
sounds like to me. And
but
so
no,
people need to be
but just
seeing
the
somewhere
fact,
living.
that this position exists, and the power for this person to litigate a landlord who is acting unscrupulous,
I,
who is not abiding by the tenant's bill of rights, will more than likely get them to comply with
I
that tenant bill
understand,
of
but
rights.
right now people need to be somewhere to live that's affordable. That's number one. That goes number one, and then, and I'm not saying that you can't create it at the same time, but we need to have people in affordable housing. Am I wrong, Stephanie? On
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just read an article in Florida Politics in the last hour where the mayor was talking about creation of 10,000 affordable units. And and then I'm like, wait a minute, she may have created 10,000 units, but that doesn't mean they're affordable if she created them. I don't think she really created them. Those are developers that do that. But I mean, just like the downtown CRA, a couple months ago, the downtown CRA manager goes for the CRA board, also known as city council with a different hat, and says, oh, yes, we have 2,500 units coming in downtown. Well, those are great. 2,500 units is wonderful. But how many of them are affordable? The answer is zero.
No.
Not one of them. And to be honest with you, it's like pulling teeth. I mean, every single development that is pushed in this city should have at least a small percentage of affordable units. Period. It shouldn't be pushing all the people together in one space. It should never be like that. We have seen over the last 50 years what what housing projects do to the society that is there. The only way that kids see people with money in their pocket are people who are doing things that are illegal and immoral. And so they don't see people getting out there and hustling for a living and doing the right thing, the legal things. And so by disseminating the poverty, you are able to um, show people the right way to do it and show people the way that it's a positive future.
Walter,
You know,
Walter, listen, I'm not bad. Listen, Getulio, I'm on board. I'm on the train of the nine of a notice, one that makes sense before you have to make a decision whether to renew or not. I'm with that. I'm with everything you're advocating for. Right to cancel, to a right to counsel for somebody that's being wrongfully evicted. The registry. I'm all on board for that. But sh- don't you think we need to deal with capping exorbitant rents first, Walter? Am I wrong on that?
Nope, you're absolutely right about that.
Haiti.
Absolutely right about
I
that.
would love rent control.
But
We've
here's
tried it.
here's
But Getulio, if we do all these things that are good things, I'm on board with them. Before you do stop the bleeding, I don't. That's like, to me, it's putting. I don't see that that's the orderly way to do it. I don't see that that's. I think for me, I would want the rents to be capped. Cap them. Stop the bleeding now. And then once that's in place, and listen, I'm not saying don't do both at the same time. Do
it's
both at the
parallel
same time.
operation,
But
right?
Haiti,
to have all these
you're
things happen
misunderstanding me.
first, yeah.
Haiti, you're misunderstanding me. I agree with the rent cap. I agree with rent control. Hell, I'll take rent stabilization at this point.
Could we
My
do
my
that,
my
Walter? Could we do that?
my point, the mayor, we can do that, but it's incumbent on the mayor to declare a housing a state of emergency, and she will not do that. She
Could she do
refuses
that,
to do that.
Stephanie? Could she do that?
Even okay, so and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, yes, I think she could. Do I think she will? No. And here's here's the big picture of why. As somebody who has fought for something before city council, we fought for a moratorium on the building in our area just because we live out on a dead end and we wanted people to stop until they had a plan. Now, of course, this was pre-housing crisis, pre every day somebody's moving here from someplace else and taking up the housing that we have. And so bottom line is that if you do a rent cap or a rent stabilization and it's only for a year or two, people are actually going to go in before that and they're going to change the rent before that. And then they're just going to wait until after that. And then they're going to jack up the rent. So yes, it may stabilize for a year, but unless you have a way to realistically fix it during that 1 year, it may make it worse for everybody,
Now,
both sides.
the key difference between rent stabilization and a hard cap is that stabilization is just a percentage, and then I think it's a lot easier to pass because you can renew that annually, right? And then it could also be added to the city charter. They're working on the charter right now. I mean, whether they realistically they would do it or not, I don't know, because they wouldn't want that to be part of the city's constitution. But rent stabilization right now sounds like a great idea, and for the future, should another housing emergency pop up, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. But yeah, like rent stabilization, I'll take that. I'd love a hard cap, Haiti. I really would, but it's on the mayor, and she's just refusing to do it. She doesn't care about the people's pain, apparently.
She can do it, Walter.
She can do it. It can be done. It can be done. There's
So yeah, so if she
there's
doesn't do that, if the mayor can do it and she doesn't do it, then she doesn't give a rip about people. Let's see where she lives.
there's got that
Unless
that has to
she's
be
hooked
it.
up financially and lives nice and it lives in a nice home. And what about these poor people? If she can do it and
Oh
she
yes,
does it,
Let me
my
let me
word, may judgment come down, man.
Haiti. She took an entire check in Bitcoin. I think she can afford to do it.
Okay,
She took an
so
entire paycheck in Bitcoin.
are we
Okay,
all in
so
agreement that the recent ordinance that was passed by the city council is really nothing to
absolutely there's
celebrate
no,
about?
no, it's nothing to be celebrated at all. Not at all. I'll be the first one to tell you that I no bones about it. I'm not celebrating, and I'm telling you right now, nobody else is. That's in the situation. No one's
Right.
in. Listen to what I said. No one who's in the situation is celebrating that
Celebrating. Nope.
because they're trying to figure out how they're already in the situation as it stands. They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay this thing. They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay the rent right now. Now, no, so 60 days don't mean a hill of beans the crap. So
It's nothing. It's nothing.
yeah. So now let's take a look at the core issue. The core issue is we have in place right now people who are making decisions who are not in touch with the people that they are
No, that's
representing.
true. That's true. Go see
That
how
and
those city
hold on.
council live All
Yeah.
of them. How do
Wait,
they live?
So
hold on.
now, no, no, no.
Let
I'd
Walter
like,
finish. Let Walter finish it,
Julio, let me
Julio.
finish. Let me be clear about this point. There is absolutely no excuse for them not understanding that there's no affordable housing that's going to be done by developers in the manner that was just described. There's absolutely no way that was going to be done. It was passed by the legislature in March of about 2019 or so, that they were putting that power in the hands of developers. The fact is that developers do not have to listen to city council or the mayor. They don't have to listen to the county commission, and the power is in their hands. The statute stated very clearly, the power is in their hands as to whether or not they're going to even include what we consider to be affordable housing units in any of their developments. Now, that is a statute. Now, let me be very clear about another point. The other point that we have to recognize is the fact that you have people out there who don't want these people, us, who look like any of us on this screen, to be or have any economic situations that are close to any of those people that are on there, to be anywhere near the metropolitan area. They cannot get to their jobs. They're going to stay out there in the outskirts. They cannot, and they're going to live in their cars. Now they have a choice. For those people, they're left with a situation now where they have a choice. You can either take the vouchers that have been given to you and go out to the outskirts somewhere and stay out there, or you live in your car, whatever the hell you want to do, and let the chips fall where they may. This is a bad situation, and what it means is they have absolutely not just been detached. They're not just detached from the people. These people have no real understanding of the realities of what these folks are living. And like I said before, earlier on in the broadcast, my problem is not their problem right now. It's not their problem. But let me be clear. Let something happen to one of those guys on that city council. Let something happen to the mayor. Let something happen to any one of these people where they have a grievance, an issue of some sort, and they're going to be out there on that same bread line as everybody else. This is but they don't think this can happen to them. They don't think that because we allow them to operate, as I say, with impunity. They're not held accountable. They're not. And we're going to keep. What we're going to do is we're going to keep on letting them do exactly what they're doing. And we don't vote. We don't vote properly, and we don't study the vote. And the other thing is, we also have institutions within. We have to begin to take control of what our situation is in our communities. Now let's talk solutions. One of the major solutions is that we have churches, and I put this squarely on the church's shoulders. And I'm being very clear about this point. I have yet to see where anybody has said, you know what, hey, listen, let's get together, let's unify, let's take all that money that we get on Sunday and let's put it towards the community for real. Let's really start looking at the housing developments, and let's begin doing these developments that we need to do that are really affordable, right? That are accessible, reasonably affordable for the people. It's not happening, and that's within our own communities. We've got to begin to hold those institutions like that accountable for not acting properly. They're not acting at all. Period. You have yet. I don't think anybody on this screen has heard anybody yet from any of the church institutions yet step up and say that yet. Not yet. Am I right about that? Or am I wrong?
Wait. Hold on a second, Walter. Walter.
Yes.
Manhattan and crap. Right by Madison High School, there's Belmar Baptist Church, Belmar Church. Anyway, they just sold their church because it was shriveling up and dying. They sold it specifically to a developer of affordable housing. There will be 100 affordable housing on there. They put that in their guidelines when they sold the property. So there are churches out there, but they may not be where you think they are. Just like Sly in the property at Sly in Nebraska, that was a church sold property, and the neighborhood fought for the affordable housing being part of that property, that development. There are other churches who are selling out, and they're not asking for that. And kind of my mouth hangs open, because you would think the best interest of the community would be um, first and foremost. But I really got to say a big kudos to Belmar. Um, it's at the corner. It's right next to Madison.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and they did do that. What I'm speaking of, Stephanie, in what I'm speaking of specifically is in these communities, in these frontline communities like in East Ybor and so forth, East Ybor, East Tampa, West Tampa, places like that, where we know these, and up in the northern part of the university area, where we know these populations are much larger, right? And where the biggest part of our crisis exists, right? And these people get a lot of money. These churches have a lot of money. I mean, a lot. It's ridiculous. But they give this money to their, they give this money to their banks, and they do whatever, do whatever the typical thing is. But there's no radicalism, so to speak. No move towards resolving this issue. It's well, keep coming to us, and we're gonna keep praying for you, and we're gonna make sure that when you die, that everything's gonna be all right. No, that's not how it works. We have a problem right here, right now, and these people deserve to live. To live, not just survive. These people deserve to live, and that's just not right. Every single Sunday they give their 10% or whatever they got, because they have faith. They have faith that these organizations and these people are all for them. They're going to do something. And these people are out there literally, in many instances, literally dying because of their situation. That's that there's nothing right about that. Nothing right about that. It has to be held accountable.
Hold on. I was muted earlier when I wanted to just say Yolanda Rodriguez Smith, and who might that be? Walter. Amen. Thanks for tuning in, Yolanda.
Like if we're talking solutions, a rent cap is great, but ultimately, like I feel like the best solution would be if we started unionizing as tenants. If there was tenants unions and organizations throughout the city, just to organize around these issues, especially in apartment condominiums, because when the tenants, like when there's solidarity and the tenants unite, there's very little that these corporations from San Diego or wherever the hell they're from that are buying these condominiums and they're guilty of these practices. There's very little they can do. And to me, I like a lot of what Walter's touching on. I was like, this city is being gentrified. Straight up, the wholesale, the city is being gentrified, and the people who make this city work, the people that are the wage workers who are working for $15-$20 an hour, the bus drivers, they're being pushed out. And who's going to make this city run? Because all the investment is going towards downtown. If you've noticed, all the money that comes to this county, it comes to this city, is invested to downtown, and downtown keeps growing and growing and growing. But the people who live around the city, they keep getting pushed out. So who's going to work it? Who's going to make this city function without these workers? Who's going to make this city function with without these so-called undesirables? That's what I want to know.
That's right.
But the downtown is there being spent there by the CRA, and so you have to understand that CRA money pulls it out of the rest of the city. The downtown CRA, $2.9 billion they've pulled out over the last 33 years. CRAs are designed for slum and blight. When was the last time y'all been downtown and saw slum and blight? For me, not in a while, ever, if ever. Okay, let's Channel Side, same thing. That is a CRA. They're pulling money out of the general fund over and over and over again. I'm sorry, but I am personally offended when I go downtown to speak before city council that I see people picking up one piece of garbage at a time with a garbage can next to them. I'm sorry, but that means downtown's got way more money than they need to when the bus stop around the corner from my house is overflowing with garbage everywhere. So,
okay, so it sounds to me as what you all are saying that the rich are being given preference and screw the poor.
Hell yeah, of course.
Is that the theme here?
Absolutely.
Is that the theme here?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me tell you something.
Those
two places that you just mentioned, Stephanie, they need to be sunsetted.
That's
both
right.
Of those CRAs need to be sunsetted, and that money needs to be put towards East Tampa and West Tampa, so to those two CRAs in order to support it,
All right,
and
I'm
to
gonna end.
establish another one where to be up there in Sulphur Springs.
I'm gonna end on this because Walter did mention the churches that are he's saying he's not seeing them put their faith to work, because the good book does say that faith without works is dead. Okay, so I'm gonna share this. I think this is apropos. This is James 5, verse 1. Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. So, with that, let's Stephanie, you have the last word, and then you, Walter, and then you, Hatuli, and then I'll just say good night.
I just want to say one more thing. Bill Carlson has asked for them to sunset those two CRAs, not once, not probably 10 times over the last couple of years, and every single time shut down. But yet, East and West Tampa CRAs can't seem to spend their money. Why? No,
Could you school me? I need to be schooled right now. I need to get with the lingo. Sunset. What does that mean? What does that do?
That means that slum and blight in those areas has deteriorated to a point where they no longer need to withhold the tax dollars from the remainder of the city. And in this particular case, I would argue that when we start spending $25,000 or $25 million to update the STRAS with downtown CRA money, it's probably time. It's time. It doesn't have to happen today, and they set aside funds for them to close out the CRAs. But we have 9 of them in our city. Some of them really need it. East and West Tampa, absolutely. East Tampa, all the help.
Just so that I can understand here, you talking about taking monies from a certain CRA to give it to another one that really needs it? No. But
CRAs pull money out of our general fund.
Right.
Okay. And the bottom line is, in 33 years, the downtown CRA alone has pulled out $2.9 billion worth from our general fund.
Okay.
Money were available to the rest of the city instead of financing garbage pickup and boat rides.
And God, okay, I get it.
Then that money goes back into the general fund, and it raises the level of funding for the entire rest of the city.
The purpose of the CRAs in general is to eliminate. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Steph. Go ahead.
You're right. Go ahead. No,
the purpose. No. The purpose, to be very clear about that, Haiti. The purpose of the CRA community. There are 2 CRAs: community redevelopment area, which is what we're talking about here, and the Community Reinvestment Act of 1980, which actually they work together hand in hand, or can work hand in hand, not necessarily do. But when we say sunset, very clearly, what we're saying is to shut them down. They have no need. They have no function anymore. There's no slum and blight in those areas at all. In fact, the CRAs are determined based off of the slum and blight in the area and the income per capita of the people that live in those areas. And in West Tampa and in East Tampa, that has not been. That just is not the case. Sulphur Springs, not the case.
So when you sunset them, those monies will go somewhere else?
They need to go. Yes, they can go somewhere else.
Now I get it. Now, thank you. Yeah.
The money that they get more specifically comes from tax money that is located and developed from the type of construction and development that takes place in a specific mapped out area that is within that CRA. Any money that comes from those permits and things like that, that's tax money that goes towards paying for development and things like the development programming and things like that help to eliminate the slum and blight of that community. So that's why that the other CRA comes into play, which is Community Reinvestment Act, which
Yep.
helps to help the other CRA,
Carter.
Community Redevelopment Act. That is because of the historic racism that took place in those areas where you have places that are affected by redlining, and they are in the situations they are in because of those acts that were perpetrated against them in the past. So now what happens is you have banks that are in the area that they have to give up X amount of dollars. And a lot of people don't know this. They have to give up X amount of dollars to people and organizations in those communities in order to
Investment.
help them to be able to establish businesses, to establish programs, and to do things, whatever, again, to contribute to the elimination of the slum and blight in those communities and the poverty in those communities. That's why it's there now. You don't see that in Channel Side. You don't see that in downtown. You see it in East Tampa, West Tampa, East Ybor, Sulphur Springs, all these places like that right there. They need it. They need it. All the rest of those areas, they don't need it.
All right. Well,
That's
that's it. We've gone on for a lot. We can come back. We could come back again on sort of similar issues, topics, but I'm tired.
Thank
So
you.
thanks
You
for no, you. So thanks for joining, Stephanie. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Getulio and Heidi Oropesa. Everyone, thanks for tuning in and have a great night.
All right. All right.